All right. Well, good afternoon. I'm Cynthia Runge, and I'm the owner of Peridot Family Law, which is a full-service family law firm in Boston, Massachusetts. And we started doing these quarterly Zoom webinars to provide resources for our friends and colleagues who are going through transitions. Obviously, divorce, we all know, is a major transition, and it's important to have the right supports and professionals in place when you're going through this process. Just a quick reminder, this Zoom is going to be recorded. It's also going to live on my Peridot Family Law YouTube channel so that other people can visit it. And so if you want to remain anonymous, you might need to either rename yourself or unname yourself. And just be mindful that if you do ask questions at the end, that your voice would be recorded. So either choose to not ask a question or ask a question if you'd like. Other than those housekeeping questions, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing to you Maureen Weisner, who is going to talk about no money, no honey, no job, what's next? The triple calamity. Maureen is the co-founder and managing partner of a boutique career consulting firm known as KICKSTART Your Transition. And she's going to share information with us today about how a career coach can help you during and after a divorce. Maureen typically, she specializes in working with individuals who are approaching transition, typically involving career change, divorce, education, and other work-life events. She helps her clients in transition develop, execute, and launch a career blueprint for action through a customized process developed to meet their goals. She is a certified professional coach, seminar leader, speaker, and author who's been recognized as a top 10 executive coach by Women's Business Boston. She brings business knowledge, integrating a broad depth of experience drawn from her corporate sales, training, education, and small business ownership from her client base. She's also known in circles I travel in as a force of nature and the great connector. So without further ado, Maureen Weisner.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. That's a terrific introduction, and we will get started. We have about 35 minutes to really pack it in today, which is exciting. Lots of information to go through, and I have a PowerPoint. It is not death by PowerPoint, so don't be fearful of that. It could take 3 or 4 hours. We won't do that. We're going to consolidate this into a much smaller, digestible series of questions and answers and situations. So I will put the PowerPoint up, and we'll start with, again, the title, No Money, No Honey, No Job, Now What? So this is the trifecta, or if you are a racing fan, it's the triple crown of things that happen that are either anticipated or that you put in motion. If you put something in motion and you're in the power seat, if you're in the driver's seat, which is yay, hooray, that's wonderful. But people are all over the place with respect to transitions. And fear is one thing that will kill a dream every single time. When we think about the particles of something, very easily, it gets us into the place of, I can't do that, I won't do that, it's not possible to do that, versus the possibilities that anything can happen. So we look at our first, let's go back to our first slide.
All right.
So between trapezes, here we are back again, between trapezes. So for all of us, we are always at some point between those trapezes. There is, if anyone's taken a ropes course and understands what that feeling is like, where you're up pretty high, whether you have a fear of heights or not, you've taken the plunge, you're harnessed in, there's a belay group underneath you so that you know that you're safe. And at the same time, it's a scary place to be, even if there's a partner that's going up with you. In fact, there's a place in the Boston area, there was a furniture store, and the furniture store had it looked like something that was for acrobats, but if you look a little bit more closely, there was always a lineup of people that were going to participate. And there were those individuals who were running up the ladder to get to the platform. Now, that person might have been wearing sequins and spangles and spandex and thrilled to be doing that. And then you've got the people who are kind of hovering at the bottom, shaking like a leaf and really concerned about what's going to happen next, don't know. But the reality for either person who got up to the top is that the platform is a relatively safe place. someone will harness you in, and there is a safety net, and there is a person on the other side on another trapeze. And you had options. You could either take the trapeze in your hand and you could go with it. And either momentum would carry you if you chose to be partnered and caught, if you will, by the person on the other side. You could signal for that. Or you could grab that trapeze and you'd end up midway. And momentum would again only take you so far. So you could either stop there, hang there, consider your options, drop to the safety net, get off, and try again, or not try again, because that was a scary place to be. It was uncomfortable. But there's also the opportunity, especially for women. Sue Schellenberger wrote a terrific book. She was an author, and she wrote columns for the New York Times for a number of years. And she talked about the physical, scary thing that women in their 40s and 50s, when they do that, it opens up a whole other door. It opens up a whole other door mentally, even spiritually, if you will, so that risk-taking becomes more easy. Now, that's not to say that she had a terrible motorcycle accident, so I don't recommend that for everybody. It is not the ideal for everyone to do something that's so scary. But in the case of the trapeze, just imagine that you're in that space, and at some point, another trapeze is going to come your way. Will it come close enough so you can grab it? Will the person be out there with outstretched hands? Is there going to be a support team? Well, you are harnessed, so you're not going to die, but there is that space of being uncomfortable and whether you're able to take the risk easily. Next slide, please. Oh, confusion. Confusion. What do we do next? I'm in this space. I never expected to be in this space. Why am I in this space? If you are not the primary wage earner, if you are emerging through a divorce or separation, and now the expectation is you're going to jump on that horse and be back to where you were prior to your relationship, or even during your relationship, if it was something that was full-time, if you were part-time, if you were underemployed, if you were doing something entirely different, if your focus was on volunteering and doing other kinds of work, that's a lot of time, that's a lot of experience. It's a question of scripting those pieces of it and saying, okay, is there a place where I see that I can emerge on the other side? How important is employability at this point? Is that a priority? Am I going to remain in this state of confusion? How can I move forward? Who are the people in my network, and who are the people to be added to my network? Do I have the tools that I need? It can be a very scary place, but at the same time, you're not alone. There are people that are in the job search, even though there's a myth around this. And let's go to the next one. There is a myth around the job search. There are jobs everywhere. There must be something wrong with you. I can swing a dead cat and see signage for job openings. Everyone I know personally, everyone I know professionally is looking for someone. Even worse, they can't find anyone who will show up. People come for interviews, they're ghosted. People don't come for interviews, we don't know what's happening. No one wants to work. Everyone wants to work. So there's a lot out there that can be, again, scary. But at the same time, how do you center yourself and think about next possibilities for yourself? Artificial intelligence, big player right now. Jobs that were previously entry-level kinds of jobs are disappearing. Law firms in particular, financial firms. Goldman Sachs in the last few months has laid off thousands of individuals. I think in the last couple of weeks, 1,000, because those are jobs that are being shifted to artificial intelligence performance. And how does that impact us going forward? Now, people are screaming about artificial intelligence. So they're baddies, they're goodies. This is wonderful. What about plagiarism? I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know what to accept anymore. It's very confusing. And we don't know yet. And there'll be a lot of legal work in here to determine what is and what isn't. And is this truly newly created information? Are these jobs that are being effectively taken away? Or are we making a more efficient workplace? All to be advised, but when you are in the whirlwind of all of this, it's very hard to imagine. Now let's look at your timeline. Everyone's timeline is different. Is there urgency? Are we looking at, listen, I have to put food on the table. Doesn't matter what anybody tells me. I'm frightened. I need to find something quickly. So we then look at a resume perhaps as a priority. Someone comes to you and says, listen, Jane or Joe, I have the job for you. I know that you want to get back on your feet. This is easy to do. Resumes are not one size fits all. If you asked me about resumes a year ago, I would have to say you probably have to redo it now. You have to refine it. Candidate tracking systems, which are used by recruiters and all hiring personnel, will kick out resumes if they don't conform to the job description. And that's a whole other conversation. We could take up hours on that. But resumes do mean that you will have to script them appropriately with action words that show what you did. Now, for someone who says, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't been formally employed for X number of years. I've been primary as a child, as taking care of my children, and I don't know how that works. Well, everyone has networks. Everyone has developed skills. If you've done volunteer work, if you've been on the soccer lines, if you provided oranges and water for your kids, if you've organized carpools, if you've been very involved in the schools where your children are students, you know people. They may not know you in the same capacity that you'd like to move forward, but that's, again, we will discuss further. So urgency means I have to do this. I want to get on board quickly. I don't know who I can speak to. I don't know how to do that. Something that we can help with. Negotiating salaries, interview preparation. They're all pieces of the job search. And the job search, to be very honest, is a full-time job. When you're occupied with other things, it's very hard to do, but it's easy to say, you know, carve out some time early in the morning. You can do that. Get up at 5 a.m., get up at 4:30, don't sleep too much. Or you can do it at the end of the day when you have, you're not too exhausted from all of the things that go with, and the fear of financial issues, where you're going to live. There may be a relocation, lots of things happening in life, especially if you are in a job transition or you're in the divorce process. Are you mid-odyssey? Are you in a place where you have a timeline? It could be 3 months. It could be 6 months. It could be 5 years when the house has to be sold, if that's a place where you are. You may have children who are aging out so that you know that you have X amount of time. Now, the interesting thing about timelines is, and we've discussed this many times before. In fact, Cindy and I discussed this before we got on the call. People will say, oh my goodness, 5 years, how am I ever going to do that? 3 years. Well, here's the reality. In 3 years, you're going to be 3 years older than you are now. Will you have the certification? Will you have the degree? Will you have any other training that you don't have now that's going to move you forward? All to be advised, but we don't want to dismiss timelines out of the clear blue. Law school is 3 years. You have to prep for that, of course, but it does take some time. If you're thinking about any career path, it's going to take some training. There is a US government website, which we love. It's actually, and I will include that at the end or afterwards, we'll get to it. It's a job site so that, let's say your yearning, burning desire was to be an engineer or to be a nurse practitioner or a floral designer. Pick something out of a hat, it does not matter. So you pop the title in, and from the title, it will give you a range of salaries. It will give you the certifications, the learning that's required to get there. And so for engineer, it may mean that there are multiple degrees that you might need or multiple certifications. Is there something that I can do right out of the gate? Just put that in. It will tell you also what's trending. So if you said to me, for example, you know, typesetting is something I've always dreamed about. I love calligraphy. I love words. I love all of that. Because I'm like, typesetting's kind of, you know, it's pretty much being automated now. So you may not be thinking about that specific area. Likewise, journalism. Am I going to be a print newspaper author? Probably not, but there are lots of ways that you can do it. People say, yes, you can launch a business online. Yes, you can. You can put things on Etsy. You can create something very quickly. You can do a website. You can do everything very quickly and not get hung up on logos and all of the stuff that goes with it. So is it financially possible to do it? Yes. Is it financially a good thing to do? All to be advised. And are you an explorer? That's really the third category. You have a lot of time. I don't know. Do I want to go back to school? Do I not want to go back to school? Is there something that I've always put on a back burner, but I need to move forward? I'm not sure, but we can help partner around that. How do you start a job search? How do you even think about what your skill set is? Where are assessments? There are many assessments that are online or available that are without cost. There are books, of course, that you can take your time reading, learning about what's your parachute. There's a plethora of books that you can read about, but that kind of gets you stuck in that space of being at home and sort of throwing out, applying to jobs. And the reality is that the more people you meet, the more people you know, the more people who know what you would like to do, the numbers increase. Most jobs are found through, it's like 60%, through personal introductions. Let's go to the next one. What is your issue here? We can look with those binoculars. I don't know how many people have gone to a concert and you say, oh, those big screens are up there. I can look at the big screen and I can see it. But when you have binos, you sort of feel like you really are in person and you're on the stage, which is a little bit different. And how amenable are you to a search? Who's doing the thing that you would like to do? Who can you have a conversation with? Who can help you with that? Most people are interested in being helpful. Informational interviews are all about being helpful. Let's say I've always wanted to do something with the Boston Symphony. I think it's a great organization. What would I like to do? What are my roles? You can look on their job board and see what that looks like. What are the kinds of jobs they're looking for? What are the requirements to do that? Do I know anybody that's at the Boston Symphony or at MGH or any institution that you're thinking about, whether it's tech, whether it's academia, whatever in the Boston area, just as an example, the 4 cornerstones of employment are going to be around finance, academia, medicine, and tech. And tech is enormous. We've got a big umbrella for whether it's bioscience, whether it's farm, whether it's actually engineering, the best schools in the country. Do most people stay here? Probably not, because the cost of living is what the cost of living is, which circles us back to, are you going to have to do a reload? Or are you going to have to downsize? What does that look like? So there are a lot of stresses when you're in the process of divorce, and certainly a lot of stresses when you're in the job transition. But how willing are you to be flexible and look and ask? And this is a time when it's not just, help me, I don't know what I'm doing. People are going to look at you very differently. If you now describe yourself as an artist, if you now describe yourself as an engineer, as something that people don't know that you are in their minds, family members still see you as you were when you were 5 years old. Good friends will see you in the same way. And one of the issues around change is that when you change, that means other people in your world have to change, which creates a lot of fear for other people, and they don't necessarily want to jump on board with the change that you're making because it impacts them or requires them to do some self-reflection, which isn't always 100% comfortable for people. So when you're thinking about what you could wear in the future as the mantle of a new job, think broadly before you think very specifically. Okay, let's move on. Who am I? Darned if I know. I know who I've been. I'm not sure where I'd like to go. What does that look like? Am I confused? Of course you're confused, unless you've had a very specific yearning, burning desire, and you knew from day one that it was something that you haven't done. I've had a client, and this was in the past, who was in corporate, continued on, said, not for me. I think I want to go to medical school. And she was a seasoned, successful person. I want to go to medical school. Okay, fine. She became a psychiatrist. Okay, terrific. Now, let's keep in mind that this is not somebody with children and somebody who was single. So she really did have a lot of flexibility, but she was very frugal and she was very disciplined and very excited about what her next steps could be. What's the next step? Oh, ring-a-ding-ding. Seminary. I wasn't getting enough out of psychiatry, and certainly I understand the corporate world, but how can I take my yearning, my desire, my issues around helping, my desire to be on the front lines in a way that I can help people with my medical training, and I can also be a spiritual advisor. So was she able to do it successfully? Well, that's still to be advised. She's still in seminary, from what I understand. And we do check in occasionally, but it's a marvel that individuals have this capacity to pivot and pivot in a way. Again, you don't have to be, if you're an ice dancer, as an example, you don't have to come out with 10s with the judges. You can just, don't encourage a big flop on the floor. Not only does it hurt, but it's not so pretty. But you can possibly not make that axle or the performance or whatever it is, and still know that your hard work and your determination is taking you to the next place. When we look at the place of work, what are we looking at? We're looking at, is it a job or is it a career? Guess what? Jobs provide lots of things. And sometimes the good enough job is exactly what it is. It is a good enough job. It will take you to the next place. And that job will give you or help you with health insurance, fund your retirement, take care of other pieces. Now, with the job situation the way it is right now, in prior to COVID, let's say, and people were working in space, it was much easier to onboard with a job. You get there, you have people that are resources. That's not to say that this is going to be the future of work. Will it change? It's changing even as we speak. So that, are you going to be remote? Are you going to be hybrid? Are you going to be in person all the time? That's a tough one unless you're delivering services. If you're in the medical community, it's more likely than not that you're going to be full-time someplace. Otherwise, for many professions, law included, accounting, finance, you're probably going to be remote unless your client wants to meet you in person at some point, or you are in court, obviously. And then that's also remote in many cases. And as a job, sometimes, let's look at this and say, sometimes the job is a good enough job. It gives you all of those things that you need to carry on every day, to take care of your family, to take care of yourself. Is that important? That can be a priority. And again, there is no judgment around any of this. Is it a career that you're building? Okay, yay, hooray. Is that something that is incremental? Am I going to be able to look back at this and say, this is something that I've put in place. I'm very excited about it. I have the learning that I need to go with it, but I need more learning. I'd like to do more online kinds of certifications, information, and there's so much that is complimentary right now, or free, if you will, where you can look at certificates that can, at least when you are in the interview process, say to a potential employer who is, again, tuned into the same radio station, WIFM, what's in it for me? I interview Jane or interview Joe or Linda or whoever it is, and I say, okay, how is this going to help me? How is this going to move my business forward? How is this going to move my team forward? What are you bringing to the table? So it's all about pain and gain. What are you bringing to the table? Are you developing a career? Is a career going to be lifelong? It all depends. There is no judgment about either one. Can you have a job and a career? Can you have a career and create a side business that is also going to be inspiring in your spare time, considering that you've got all of these things on your plate right now and you're considering, where do I go? What do I do? And how do I go about doing it? Even better, am I an employee? Am I an entrepreneur? When I've done programs in the past, and those were primarily in person, and the question was asked, which are you, an employee or an entrepreneur? Overwhelmingly, people say, 100%, 100%. I'm an entrepreneur. I can see myself as a business owner. Oh, yes, I think restaurants are a great idea. And then you have to say, hang on, what is it about restaurants? You like to eat in restaurants? That's wonderful. Do you know the finances? Do you know the business model? Those are the pieces to explore. What is it about being an entrepreneur that's exciting to you? I don't want to work for anybody. I don't want to take any rules. I want to create my own schedule. Fantastic. Are you comfortable doing all the marketing? Are you comfortable funding your own retirement? Are you comfortable paying for all of your insurances out of pocket? Now, that's not to say that this is a black and white situation where it's an either all. Is there another way that there's support coming in? Can you do this? Can you create a business? Are you somebody who is inspiring in that way? Can you partner with somebody who's doing something that you're interested in, that you like, and you think you'd like to do more of? Well, there is that piece also where we say partners are made for dancing and not necessarily other things. But that's to be advised. These are all personal decisions. And there's no judgment around any of this. Can you launch a business? Are you solving a problem? And that is primarily the reason that you launch a business. I see a gap. There used to be, if there were lines outside a particular store, was that a business opportunity? Is there something that I've missed? So if you take something right now where you've seen the market changing, and the stock market changes every day, who's buying what, what's trending, what's important, all to be advised. Are you a market timer? Don't recommend that at all. But there are places right now for individuals who are reentering, the workforce who were professionals, who were saying, I really did X for a long time. And guess what? I hated it. I don't want to do it again. There's nothing about it that appeals to me. Yes, that's where my education was. That's where everybody's telling me, wow, you're a terrific talent. I can't believe you wouldn't go back to this. You made such a difference. And you may say, in the years that I've been away from it, either partially or completely, I'm rethinking this and saying, not for me, don't want to do it again. On the contrary, you might say, wow, I'm so excited about this. I can't wait to get out and do this again. I want to be around colleagues. I want to go to meetings. I want to go, I think the biotech convention, the first time in 5 years, is in Boston right now. And there are thousands of people there. And they're just excited to be there. There's a lot of energy that comes from being in person. And one of the reasons that people like to be in person is that you can ask questions quickly. You can get answers more quickly. Well, hopefully, we're saying that those people were in your sphere and you could ask questions, which comes to the other place of onboarding. With new positions right now, it's very challenging. Imagine you're a remote worker and you said, well, wait a second, I've got kids, I've got all this. I want to get out of Dodge. This is not where I want to be. In the days that people describe where, there are jobs everywhere. Yes, hospitality is an area where there's always hiring. Is hospitality an area that's of interest to you? Do you have weekends and nights where you can work and you don't have the same responsibilities as somebody else? Could you imagine waiting tables? Yeah, when you're 18, it's a different story. But when you're a fully formed individual, is that an area that you'd like to go to? Or is there an imperative to get food on the table? Is that the route that I want to take? All to be advised. But there are always jobs in hospitality. You can always look at job boards for hotels, for restaurants. It used to be that retail was a safe place to land. And people would say, okay, I can work seasonally. I can work part-time. Now it's true that UPS is probably hiring. Do you want to be an Uber driver? No judgment around any of this. What are the risks? What are the advantages? Is there a way that I can get on board? And what does that look like? Is this something that suits me? Or not unlike the instance where if you're getting divorced or in divorce and you were in a long-term relationship, even a short-term relationship, is it likely that the first person you date or the first person you have a relationship with is going to be your forever person? Is it possible? Anything's possible. But what we really counsel clients to say is, this job does not have to be the perfect job. This job can be the job that is right now the good enough job. It's going to expose me to whatever field or industry I might be interested in. It's also going to build my resume, which, yes, is a document. Yes, somebody is going to reference it. Yes, people will look online, which is another reason to get off Facebook. For anyone who's on Facebook and posting, even though your settings may be privacy settings and you're very clear about that, guess what? Anybody can find out anything about you and very quickly. So is that something that an interviewer is going to say, wow, that's so terrific about Suzanne. I had no idea that she liked to ride bareback. Now, again, that's not to say that you shouldn't have an experience in vacation and time with your family or friends. That is fine. But be very aware, nothing political, absolutely, never, ever, 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 ever. Nothing that can't be quoted forever, ever, ever, that's going to be there and is going to come back and either praise you or haunt you. Yes, there are, yes, be happy. That's a different story. But when you take a firm position about something, just understand that that is yay or not yay. It's going to be part of your life forever. So we've got job, career, just to review. They both work. What do you want to develop? What do you want to kick to the curb? Talk about that, research that. Did you have a cohort? Even though you may be well advanced from your school years, do you still have connections to people who were in your sorority, people who were part of your cohort, people who were on your team? If you were on an athletic team, and we always say this to new grads or emerging professionals, if you had a role on a team, it's very important. People love the incidence of, it's something like 16 to 20% higher number of hires when you have participated in the team, because it's very important to employers right now. Remember, again, you've got lots of connections. So even though you think, wow, I may have been, and a stay-at-home mom is a working mother. I think we've all at some point, even it was brief time during maternity leave, you're a working mother, you're taking care of lots, you're a project manager. There are many ways to script this. And with the help of a professional who will help you script a resume, you can have a document that is going to speak to your skills, your assets, and how you can contribute going forward. As far as a resume goes, length of a resume, never more than 2 pages, unless you are a published author and you've done a number of white papers and you have such a deep wealth of experience. Then we're looking at a CV, which is much more involved, and we can help you with that. Salary negotiation, interview preparation. How can you be on camera? How can you make eye contact? What does it look like? Is your background going to be consistent? Everything is different. And for the job that you take, again, consider the bridge job can help get you to the next place. It can show that you have been disciplined, that you've shown up, that you've contributed, that there are projects that you contribute. There may be dollars saved as a result of the work that you've done. It opens up a whole other way to be in the job search. Next slide, please. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So a good example, although I wasn't so thrilled at the time, I had an appointment in Boston. It was this was a hard start. There was no wiggle room about this. And I left myself considerable amount of time. So that, or like ridiculous amount of time. Even I was saying, oh my goodness, at least I'll be able to catch up on other work or even read. How wonderful is that? Read. So that in that period, I anticipated that I was going to be able to get a parking spot in the garage. I was going to be able to sit. Everything's fine. Well, guess what? There's a road in Boston. It's called Star Drive. No matter what time of day, you can anticipate anything in there. All bets are off. Flying along, getting in, I'm thinking, I've got all this extra time. It's silly that I left so early. What else can I actually do in the area where I have the appointment? Not much. And then traffic, dead halt, nowhere to go. And Waze is telling me to get off. Well, yeah, I just passed that exit. So thanks very much. That's not going to help me. So I'm sitting in the car and I said, what am I going to do? And I'm getting more agitated about this because I have to be there and I don't have, there's just no wiggle room. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And you're moving along incrementally. And yes, there are sirens. And yes, you think, oh, that's terrible. I hope nothing terrible happened. And then when you finally get up to it and they see that there's a tremendous, 3 or 4 car accident in the right lane, which was terrible. The cars were really in very bad shape and their tow trucks and so forth. And as I'm driving away from that, I said, you know what? Had I been 10 minutes earlier, that could have been me in that accident. That's a scary place to be. And it really helped calm down all of those feelings about, I've done the best that I can. I'm not going to be there. Who am I going to have to call? This is going to be problematic. The person I have to meet, this is bad practices. This is going to, and created this entire scenario. And the reality is, you know what? As it turned out, I wasn't late. I did get a parking spot. Yay, hooray. But at the same time, I was paralyzed. There was nothing I could do. So in a perfect world, you say, well, how can I make the best use of this time? Oh, come on. Your blood pressure is racing and you're thinking there's nothing good about this until you see the effects of this on someone else and how it has impacted them. And that's not to minimize anything that anybody's gone through. We've all been in job transition. I think everybody in here has either quit a job prematurely, taken a job that they didn't like, been in a relationship that didn't work, been someplace where, here's the good news, on so many levels where we had this idea, you can't quit. You can't stop this. You have to keep at it. You have to work hard. You have to make it happen. The first time you put down a book that you started reading and said, wait a second, this isn't what I thought. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to devote, how will I get back the next 2 hours or 3 hours of my time reading something that is not giving me the pleasure that I wanted, the information that I was seeking, and maybe it wasn't the best choice, and that's okay. Not every relationship is going to work. Not every job is going to work. Friendships evolve. People do come into you, and it sounds trite, people come into your life for a reason, a season, or forever, and it's very true. So if you look at this and you imagine every day, you can be that lion, you can be that person who is going to transcend adversity. Things happen every day. I mean, really, the world is a wonderful place. The world is also a crapshoot in terms of who you meet and how that happens. But the reality is that in the job search, and as you transform yourself into a new person around work, as an example, you're going to grow, you're going to change. You may make decisions that don't suit you, and you can back away from those decisions. Or if you're in an organization, for example, where you're feeling that the politics don't work for you, you're not moving ahead, this is really entry level, it's not going to help me. Is there someone in that organization that you can reach out to? And I hate to use the term mentor because mentor seems to be only for women. You don't hear about mentors for men. That sort of happens organically. But for women, there are departments where we have mentoring, we have special services because we're trying to get them to leap forward, or they are broken before they get started. And if you're going through a divorce, you've probably been thinking, you know, I've been broken in lots of ways, with purpose and without purpose. And how do I reconfigure and take myself and my job search to the next place in a healthy way that's going to help me? And very often that requires, or it doesn't necessarily demand, but having a partner helping you do this around coaching you to the next level, building confidence, and really transforming yourself in a way where you feel I'm pursuing something that's intellectually stimulating. I'm a role model for my children if I have children. My children are, guess what? They're going to grow up and they're going to look at you at some point and say, oh, wow, you know, she did the best she could, or he did the best that he could. And now what? Is there a transformative purpose here? Yeah, of course. And what do we say to children? Try it. Try it. If you fail, so what? Try it. And what we recommend to clients is usually try something. And activity sometimes is the best thing possible. We had a client she's one of my favorites. It was from medicine to Harley, from healthcare to Harley and Harleys. And she was somebody who was in another state where there were lots of nursing homes and assisted living care facilities. And she was running a very significant one. And it was purchased by another company. She left and she wasn't able to find employment. She would get to second and third level interviews. And you know, again, we couldn't be fly on the wall to see what's happening. Why can't she close? What's happening here? What's the default? What's the problem? And one day she and her husband liked to ride Harleys for adventure, and they did on a regular basis. And they were in the Harley dealership, and someone said, you know what, we're looking for a sales rep. And bingo, she did take that job, and she did have the opportunity to try it. So something that was fun, something that took her away from the intensity of the job search, where rejection is just feeling lousy, where you're doing something where you're engaging differently, but you're out in the workforce in a different way. Next one, please. Some ideas, changes ahead for every one of us. We encourage our family and we encourage our kids to change. But family members don't always, as we said, don't necessarily want you to change, because if you change, that means that they have to change. So sometimes when you're declaring that, you know, now I'm an engineer, now I'm an artist, now I'm going back to school, the more strangers you talk to about this, the more enrollment you get from strangers. They don't know you from a hole in the wall and would say, hey, that's fantastic. I'm on board with that. We had one client who wanted to perform on Broadway. Said, I don't know if she's talented or she's not talented, but that's what she wanted to do. So tell us when you're going to be there. We'll get tickets and we'll take a big old bus down to the city and we'll watch you. When did that happen? Still to be advised. It's on my list of things to do. Next, please. So what are some ideas? Part of it is getting into a network of people who are not your common network, because everybody who knows you knows who you are and how you are. If there's an area that you'd like to pursue, let's say it is biotech, let's say it's medicine, let's say nursing, let's say it's teaching, whatever that is, you can go to or attend meetings online as a guest in many cases and find out what it is it's ticking. You can also ask friends, family members, and I put that in air quotes, other people for introductions for those informational interviews that take up X amount of time. And you can ask the person at that time, is this something that you love, that you made this choice? If you had it to do over again, is this something that you would do over again? Or kick it to the curb and do something entirely different? Many people will tell you, if I'd only known, I would have taken a different path. Last slide. This is the best. Conclude each day with the happiness habit. When you state 3 things that happened in your day, share with someone. This could be a partner, this could be with a child, this could be with a friend. Record it somewhere, and then look at it at the end of the week. So you can throw it on a Post-it, you can throw it on, on your phone. But when you look back and see what you accomplished and what you did and what you enjoyed, and when you go to sleep thinking in a positive fashion, it's going to start your day off in a different way. Thank you again. Working with a coach can accelerate your personal and professional growth. I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope that you were able to get something from this presentation.
Thank you, Maureen. That was fabulous. I just had a couple questions. So, what do you have any advice for people that might have lengthy gaps in their resumes? How to address that?
Lengthy gaps where people say it looks like a big hole, I wasn't doing anything. Well, you probably were doing a lot of things during that time. So when you can sit down and record some of the things that you did, I ran this event for my children's school, or I did something, whatever fundraiser it was. I've been very involved with advocating for my children's. You might have a child who's on an IEP, and you've been very involved in the school, and you've been talking to those people who are the players. You may have, again, friends and allies who you've always connected with when you're on the sidelines at a soccer game. Women or men who you knew from a different life, and it's an opportunity to check back in with them and say, these are the kinds of things that I've been doing. Project management always comes up as a big plus, and it could also be negotiation. I've been negotiating for pricing. I've done a complete rehaul on my home. I've renovated my kitchen. Yay, hooray, and God bless you. That is one of the most challenging and difficult things to do. How do I negotiate with vendors? How can I fill this in a way that doesn't say, well, gee, here it is. I did this from this time. I haven't been in the traditional workplace for this amount of time, but you're looking at a different format for a resume, which is all about, we don't need to go back to your high school graduation, but it's, we don't put anything on a resume that's more older than 15 years, unless you had some scientific breakthrough and you're well known in your field. And anything is possible. We don't know, but think about the things the places where you're connected, whether it's spiritually, whether you're involved with the voting league, whether you're involved with local government, whether you sat on committees, whether you've been part of any kind of work going forward, whether you've been a tutor, whether you've been an advocate. So there are lots of ways we can think about the roles that you may have taken on and how we can create a script that goes with that.
Fantastic. I just also wanted to make a comment. I loved in your presentation when you showed the picture of the people in the trapeze, because it reminds me, I think I heard this, I got this from someone else and I can't recall who, but the idea of when you're trying something new and you have that moment of when you feel like you let go of what's old and you haven't quite reached the new, that sort of feeling of being suspended. It's a scary feeling. And so I wanted to acknowledge that. But the other point you made, I think sometimes I'll hear people say, oh, that was a waste. I shouldn't have done that. I didn't like what that turned out to be a crappy job or a crappy career decision. But yet, had you not tried it, you wouldn't know.
100%. Life is very often by subtraction before it's by addition. So we will counsel individuals to say, okay, this may feel like it's not an exact fit. That's okay. I mean, that's why we have tailors and seamstresses, so that they can take a garment and they can adjust it. So you may end up someplace and say, well, this isn't exactly the role that I was looking for, but I would really like to learn more about whether it's marketing, for example, because that's something that interests me. That's what I was good at. We did all of the marketing for this huge event. I've always been able to plan different things. So this is the creative piece, but wait a second, I'm a very nuts and bolts person. I may be a very left brain person and I don't have those communication skills. I don't have that creativity. That's entirely possible, but you're the person that could put that model together that I would say, oh my God, I'm the person that gets the instructions. I throw the instructions out and I try to wing it, which isn't a good idea. I have to say, it hasn't always worked. Sometimes it has, but for the most part, our brains work the way they do. We have had intermittent positive reinforcement about certain things. So we say, well, let's go with that. Once you sort of try to give up that space of what I should be, or what I could be, or what people told me I had to be, and you're in this, I want to say, more grown up, more a wiser place where you say, if I do this and it works out, yay. If I do this, how can I make it work out? Who can I engage who can help me with questions that can make this a better fit? It may not be ideal, but you know what? I'm going to take up the length of that. I'm going to keep it, make it longer. I'm going to revamp something. I'm going to gut my kitchen because I can visualize that. Somebody else would say, you're joking. I can't even imagine what it is to collapse a box, what that looks like. Whereas you might take data, Cindy, and you may just crunch it. And you might be the person, I want at the head of the line. You may be the person that wants to be at the back of the line. Some people will say public speaking, I'd rather have 2 root canals than get up in public and speak to anyone. You've got to be kidding. I don't ever want to do that. And it doesn't mean that you have to, but public speaking is a whole other, you do need to be conversant enough. And as an attorney, you know what it is. It may not be your favorite thing, although you're very good at this, but it may not be your favorite thing. But at the same time, you want to be able to be poised enough so that you say, I can do this. I'm not going to freeze. It may make me uncomfortable. But the best thing about nerves, truly, when you translate that and you say, am I nervous or am I excited? What is the possibility here? What can I learn from this? That person may be a jerk. That may not be the person that I want to hang out with. It may be a time to look at other relationships, not necessarily your primary relationship, and look at friendships and say, how is this serving me? Some people do a yearly review, in fact, on friendships and say, how are we serving each other? Do we bring out the best or the worst in each other? And you say, just because there is an existing relationship, can I shift it? Do I have the capacity to do it? Or is this a one-person play on, I'm dragging everybody across the finish line. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to make the plan. I don't want to chase you down. Maybe that's a person that I put on the B list, if you will, so that I'm not spending a whole lot of time and effort. I still like that person. That person still has a place in my life, but I don't want to expend the energy and the effort towards that, because guess what? There are a whole lot of people. When do we stop making friendships and relationships? And when you think about, and we've talked about this a little bit in other meetings, where you're at a wedding and you see some people who are sitting at the table and they're very smug and they're just sitting there and saying, I don't dance. And you think, why? That's not, you don't have to be great at it. You can just get up there and kind of, I mean, how many people do you see are professional dancers, whether you want to clear the dance floor? It doesn't happen that frequently, but you're up there, you're engaging, you're part of the party, you're enjoying yourself in a different way, rather than separating yourself in this other space that probably doesn't serve you. At the same time, are we always taking risks? No, we want some things to be stable. We don't want to have to look for our toothbrush in the morning, but yes, you can think about the old trite ways of managing. Take a different way home. If you're a runner, do something differently. If you haven't exercised in a long time, if you haven't joined a gym, believe me, Planet Fitness, $10 a month, and I am the star there. And it's not, and people will say, why don't you go to like a real gym? And I say, why would I? It is a real gym. I mean, it gives you what you need. And guess what? The price is right. And the other part, for anyone you can swing $100 at $10 a month. It's not, I don't care where you are financially, but it puts you around other people. They may not be your people all the time, but you're around other people, and they don't know you from a hole in the wall. They're not particularly interested in you necessarily. Are they going to strike up a conversation? Maybe yes, maybe no. If you see somebody who's interesting and not too disgusting in the way they finished their their workout at the gym, it's okay. So you can then be in a place where you can, again, get energy from being around other people, or you can be by yourself on a machine. You can take a class. There are lots of things. You can be outside. You can be solo. You can be with other people. You can join a walking group. There are lots of things that have happened post-COVID where you can engage with people as much or as little as you would like.
And with that, I want to thank Maureen for presenting and talking about how she helps clients who are going through major transitions. And thank you again. Thanks,
Thank you for having
everyone.
me. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Take good care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.